Hello and welcome to a Daily Burn. I'm your host, Eric Miller. I have a great candidate today from the great Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, where I also live. Lindsay Powell. How you doing, Lindsay?
I'm well. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for taking some time to chat with me. Your race is a critical race in the state of Pennsylvania and beyond, and we'll get into that. This is special election, Pennsylvania State House, Allegheny County, House District 21. Did I get
Yes,
all that right? Okay.
absolutely.
So let me just kind of lob this over to you. So, what's at stake in your campaign here?
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for having me this evening and for covering our race. There is so much at stake. We are running on a campaign of affordable, dignified housing, of strong, equitable local economies, of beautiful community assets that we all can enjoy. And right now, none of that is possible without a Democratic majority in Pennsylvania. And so we have, I think, the honor and tremendous responsibility of not just delivering a Democrat for the 21st district, but ensuring that we can retain our Democratic majority in the Commonwealth so that we can continue on top of the amazing, tremendous, and transformational work that has happened under our majority, including OSHA protections for public workers, including raising the minimum wage, including LGBTQIA protections. We've seen tremendous legislation finally be passed through the House that, again, would not happen without this majority. And so we are fighting every single day until our special to make sure that happens.
Right on, and that is September 19th, which is next Tuesday. So I thank you
Yes.
for taking the time. I'm sure this week is quite hectic. Yeah, that point is a huge one, which is currently it's 101 to 101 in the Pennsylvania State House, and this race tips it one way or the other, right? And your opponent is sort of standard fare, anti-vax, Republican, you know. Uh, Whatever, anti-trans, the whole kit and the whole caboodle, right?
Absolutely.
But we don't necessarily need to get into that. Tell me a little bit about your district. I know it was redistricted in the end of last year. Is it Schaller Township? Like
Yes, Shaler Township.
Pittsburgh?
Our district is beautiful. It's almost half and half, maybe 55% city, 45% suburbs and surrounding municipalities. But it includes a wonderful array of dense urban core, some highly robust economic cores in the city, as well as a lot of more suburban areas as well. For those familiar with the district or familiar with Pittsburgh, it includes Lawrenceville, the Strip District, Troy Hill, Spring Garden, Spring Hill, Shaler Township, Millvale Reserve, Etna, and a little bit of Bloomfield and Morningside.
Okay. Okay. Very nice. And this is not, I noticed that you're endorsed Moms Demand Action, CeaseFire PA, right? This is not where Squirrel Hill, the Tree of Life, you're a bit north of that, I think, if I know.
Yeah, a little. We're outside the district, but a little bit north of that. Absolutely.
Okay. Can you talk about just sort of common sense gun legislation that you would be interested in working? Obviously, you gain their endorsement, so and that's an issue that's prevalent everywhere in the country, but particularly within, not necessarily in your district directly because of Tree of Life, but in your city, right? So talk about where you stand on that and what you would like to hopefully lend your voice to in the state house.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been honored, as you said, to have the endorsement of CeaseFire and be a recommended candidate for a Moms Demand Action. But it's critical. It's one of the biggest issues of our time. All like you mentioned, Tree of Life, but there have been several instances in and around the district where common sense gun reform has to happen. There was an incident a few months back where we had young people as young as elementary and middle school bringing guns to school. It is one of the biggest challenges of our time. And when it comes to tangible transformational reform, we have to think about ensuring that we are getting guns off the street, that we are making sure that we are banning assault rifles and weapons like that. We need to make sure that we have responsible gun owners and that we're able to take guns out of the hands of folks who are not able to be responsible and safe with them. it's not just a urban city thing. It's all across our county, all across our region. And if elected on September 19th, it's deeply important to me to continue to fight, as our House Democrats have, to make sure that these changes happen.
Great. Yeah, and I would, it's interesting you mentioned, the split of your district being, urban and rural, right? Not to simplify it that much, but, there was I think it was Fox News poll maybe just this week that even 87% of Republicans support background checks or common sense, these common sense measures, right? So it's not something that's necessarily as, bifurcated based on your district's, makeup, right? This speaks to everyone in that region, I would think, or in the country, right?
Absolutely. When you talk about common sense, it's on the doors. We door knock every single day. On the doors, it's very clear that people want change. It's very clear that people see that clearly what the issues are in our communities. And again,
Yeah.
it's not just this district, or it's not just the city, it's not just it happens here, but people are scared. And I've heard this even recently. People are scared to send their children to school,
Yeah.
because who knows what will happen. And arming teachers, isn't the answer. Making it easier for teachers to have classrooms that transform into bomb shelters is not the answer either. It's very clear to folks on the doors, folks in our regions, folks in our communities, that common sense gun reform has to happen.
Right on. So I don't assume that you take a giant check from the NRA, right?
I don't see that happening anytime soon.
Good, good. Let's keep it that way. And I know one of the things that you've worked on, you have a long history of, sort of working on legislation. I think you worked for a couple people in the House and Senate and so forth. But, I know housing or urban redevelopment has been sort of a passion of yours. Can you talk about that in the context, again, sort of within your district, both halves of it, if you will? I hate to keep dividing it, but, talk about housing in the rural context and also in the urban context.
Yeah, housing is deeply not just important to this district, but important to me. Growing up, being in housing insecure in points of my life where my family had to leave our home, and relied on the kindness of family members to take us in. I think about that experience. I think about other families that I talk to, that I work with, that feel the same way. As someone who comes from a working class background, I've advocated and fought for not just affordable housing, but dignified housing, because housing and having a home are two completely different things. And across our district, we have the neighborhoods that have rich opportunities within them, but we're very clearly seeing gentrification, or the seeds of gentrification being planted in these areas where people are displacing and pushing out our kind of poor residents, our older residents. And so in areas of the district, it's important to me that we're expanding the funding for affordable housing, not just for renters, but for homeowners as well. No matter what side of the river you're on. And that's, for those folks listening from Pittsburgh, they'll know, crossing rivers is a big thing over here. But no matter what side of the river you're on in the district, I hear constantly that people are scared that investments in their neighborhoods or transformations in their neighborhood may mean that they have to leave. And so I've run on a platform of not just making Pittsburgh your home, but keeping Pittsburgh your home. Because when we're talking about housing as a human right, it's not just being a renter, it's not just being a homeowner, it's making sure that the places that we lay our heads are safe, are dignified, and that we have the opportunity to stay in them until we don't want to.
Love it. Love it. And, just as far as that transformation goes, generationally, I listened to an interview that you had done on a local, forgive me, I don't remember her name, YouTube show from Pittsburgh. And you told this story about your grandfather being a first-time home buyer through the GI Bill or something like that, right? Which, really resonated with me because, generationally, you're probably a few years younger than me, right? It's getting progressively more difficult for people to be a home buyer, right? I'm sure this is part of something that, that you feel personally, in contrast to your grandfather, right? But, generationally, talk about that a little bit, if you would.
Absolutely. So I believe it was on the Terry Minor Spencer show that was talking about how my grandfather was a union bus driver. And for him, that union job afforded him a house that he lived in, that he bought and stayed in until the day he died, and was deeply proud of. And when we're talking about generational wealth, in particular, trying to diminish the income gap, the wealth gap between Black and white neighbors, it is so important to use home ownership as a tool. In the city of Pittsburgh, in particular, there have been multiple studies that have shown how the disparities between Black and white neighbors continues to grow. And so when I talk about caring for our neighbors, when we talk about building a city for all that's livable for all, we need to be very specific about the neighbors we're talking about. We have built a platform, we've built a campaign around caring for our neighbors, but specifically centering our underserved, underrepresented neighbors. And home ownership is one of those tools that helps us diminish the wealth gap between our neighbors. I've had the opportunity to sit on our Urban Redevelopment Authority board here in Pittsburgh, and we've done some really truly transformational work that has been replicated at the statewide level of making sure that folks have access to funds to rehab their homes, because we know that that is a huge barrier, especially for aging adults, as their home needs repairs and they can't make them, where they can't accommodate some of the mobility issues that they may have. It's a reason that people leave their homes. We have homeowners assistance, making sure that for those who need that extra little bit of cash to help them get over the line, we have that. And so the work that I've done at the local level, we hope to bring to the statewide level to reach more people so that we can start to address those disparities between our neighbors.
Amazing. Wow, that's what a gift to the Pennsylvania State House that would be, right? An advocate, such as yourself. So thank you for the work you've done on that heretofore, and Godspeed when you get into the State House here in PA. That's just incredible. Let's talk a little bit about again this seat, the balance of power in Pennsylvania. There were, how shall I say this? This is one of those states that the last president, they tried to attempt some shenanigans in Pennsylvania. And I think there was a Supreme Court ruling today, even, in our Fulton County, not to be confused with the Fulton County in Georgia, where they were trying to get access to, Dominion voting machines and just the, standard BS, election denialism and so forth. Right. So, I think the Senate is controlled by Republicans, right? So this is really a front line for staving off the rise of fascism, basically, right? Just to say it bluntly.
Call it like it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Can you talk about that? Just underscore how critical this is.
Oh my God. I feel like sometimes those of us that have had the privilege of having progressive leaders like my predecessor forget what's at stake. Because again, it's not just about this election on September 19th. It's about what it means for every single Pennsylvanian. Within our state, we've had an unfortunate series of leaders, and I use that term loosely, but unfortunate series of folks that have become unabashed election deniers, folks who have blatantly tried to undermine our democracy, blatantly have tried to rebuke and undo what we know was a just and fair election, including some folks that are running against us in this cycle. It's been underscored not just to me, but to the folks that have kind of really rallied around our campaign, that we have the opportunity to affirm, not just to, again, the district, but to the Commonwealth, that in Pennsylvania, our elections will remain free and fair. And that when we're talking about getting more people out to vote, we're not making it harder for them to do that. We want to keep mail-in ballots. We want to make sure that people have accessible polling places. And we want to make sure to rebuke and frankly squash any election deniers that there are still out there, unfortunately.
Right on. And your website, I didn't mention it, is lindsaypowellforpa.com. The election again is September 19th. It seems it's interesting, this race. We were talking a little bit before we went on air that, the Republican candidate seems to be the committee chair for the one township. You were outraising her, I don't know, 5-1 or something to this extent, right? Which, makes me think that they're not really leaning into this race for some reason, right? I don't know exactly why that might. Maybe you're so formidable and badass, which I like to think it is, but do you any, not, it's not in the bag. I would never say that about, but
Yes. Yeah.
you know, um, this is a critical race, and I was surprised to see that they're not throwing a zillion dollars at it, right?
Yeah.
Any thoughts on why that might be, or?
I mean, more than anything, the message doesn't resonate. I have not had the opportunity to meet our opponent yet, but her message on trying to go back the way that it was before,
Hmm.
and whatever kind of, you take that statement as you will, and I'm taking it as a bit of a racist dog whistle. But going back to the way it used to be, going
Hmm.
back to basics, that message doesn't resonate. People have seen that progressive candidates have delivered for every single one of us. There is a progressive streak happening in Allegheny County that I am so grateful to be living in the same time, and hopefully being a part of, because we've seen time and time again, if you put candidates up who censor those who are most vulnerable, who censor Black folks and Latinos, censor poor folks, censor working class folks. If you put candidates up that care about our communities, communities will turn right back around and continue to vote them into office. And so, more than anything, more than dollars raised, more than yard signs, more than any other ads, the message isn't there. People want a fighter who's going to look out for every single one of us. And our campaign, has proven that I have the track record, I have the backgrounds, and I have the passion to do just that for all of us.
That's fantastic. And to underscore that even further, your endorsements, Governor Shapiro, Austin Davis, Summer Lee, Chris DeLuzio, right? Summer Lee is amazing, of course, right?
Yes.
That, you know, those are some pretty good names to have in your corner, and, lend credibility to, you know, um, hopefully picking up the seats, retaining the seat, I should say, is probably the better term, right? Also endorsed by unions. Talk about, I know Pittsburgh is a big union, going back to the steelworkers and so
Yeah.
forth. Talk about, the endorsements you've got from some pretty key unions, AFL-CIO and so forth. Talk about
Yeah.
your union support.
Absolutely. Pittsburgh is a union town. Pittsburgh is a union town. Pittsburgh is a union town. We are so proud of our union roots. We are the city that built America. And that streak of protecting our unions, making sure that them and their members have everything that they need, is part of our DNA, a part of our fabric here. And so I'm so grateful to have the support of unions across the different trades, including the laborers, including IBEW, including PSEA. The list goes on. It's just been really exciting to have their support, because this is at the heart of what we're running on is working families. And unions help us build the middle class, and we want to make sure that as we continue to do that, we're doing it from a more inclusive lens, and we're working to bring everybody along.
That's amazing. So when you deliver these messages, right? Again, just using that somewhat anecdotally, the 87% that I threw out for, the gun, common sense gun polling, right, from Fox News, issue by issue, progressive policies poll, incredibly high. So I would imagine, correct me if I'm wrong here, when you're out there campaigning and you're talking to people, if you can get them one on one, or look them in the eye and give them some facts that they don't just, conspiracy theorists just reject outright, right? Once
Yeah.
you can actually deliver that message, it has to resonate. Is that what you're seeing? Like, give me some optimism there.
Yeah, no, I mean, I wish that I could bring everybody on the doors. I know sometimes door knocking and canvassing can be intimidating, but it's the most invigorating part of the campaign. Getting out there, talking to people one on one, sitting on the porch, and just going back, what's going on? What's important to you? How can government be a better reflection of what we want to see in the world? And that more than anything affirms that progressive views, progressive beliefs, progressive values resonate. We door knock every single day. I usually have my tennis shoes, my tennies, and my purse, so I can switch out at any given time if I got some time to knock some doors. Any given day, when we're out there on the doors, you talk to a grandmother who's taking care of her grandkids, and is worried about having enough money to make sure that her grandkids are able to have everything that they need to be successful. You go out on the doors and you'll meet, an aging older person, an aging adult, who's scared that they're not going to have enough money to make the repairs they need to make their home accessible now that they're using a walker. You go out on the doors and you talk to folks that are worried about our local economy, that are, looking for work, can't find anything to support themselves and their loved ones, and are looking around, what's next, what's possible. Every single day, people are feeling the squeeze more and more. And I think government, more than anything, has to be a protectorate of the people, has to be an advocate, a fierce advocate for everyday folks. And that's the work that I've done in my career, working for city government, for other elected officials. And that's the work that I want to continue to fight for the Commonwealth.
Fantastic. I know we have a bit of a time crunch, so I'll let you go in a minute. Just two quick things I want to just follow up on. We didn't talk about reproductive rights within the state. That also hangs in the balance with this. Talk about how critical, again, just through the lens of reproductive rights.
Yeah, I've been very grateful to have the endorsement of Planned Parenthood, because there is so much on the line, especially when it comes to reproductive freedom. While Roe, our ability to receive reproductive care here in Pennsylvania stands, we already know, and we're seeing legislation across the state that is going to try and ban or make it harder for what I'm calling reproductive freedom refugees to get the care that they need. And so being preemptive about making sure that folks who are coming from other states who aren't able to get care there are able to do that here in Pennsylvania. We have started the process to limit and cut off funding to some of these fake reproductive freedom clinics, and being more dogged about that. If we're going to say that you can have reproductive care here in Pennsylvania, let's make sure that we're protecting that. And so reproductive freedom is so deeply important to me, for those who are able to have children, for people to decide what they want to do with their body, full stop, and making sure that we have the laws, not just for Pennsylvanians, but for folks who want to come to PA to seek that care, making sure that those laws exist and they stand.
It's crazy that we even have to talk in those terms, I mean, maddening. You certainly, I'm preaching to the choir there, right? So again, the election is September 19th, Pennsylvania District 21, HD 21, Lindsay Powell for PA. Anyone else on your slate that you want to, or any other races that you want to make mention of, or?
I keep mentioning the tennis shoes in my purse, because while we have our special election next Tuesday, we're going to turn right around and make sure that the rest of the slated progressive candidates get elected. And so my predecessor is running for Allegheny County Executive, Sarah Innamorato. We've got to make sure we get her over the line. There are a series of progressive judges all across the state that are running for Superior Court, for Supreme Court. None of this matters if we don't have a judicial body that's able to ensure that the legislation we write can go through. So making sure that our judicial slate is able to get over the line as well. So we're gonna celebrate the 19th. We may have a slow morning the 20th, but we are back on the doors. We are back on the street, making sure that our fellow progressive candidates get over the line November 7th as well in Pennsylvania.
Fantastic. And Malcolm Kenyatta is running as well, right?
Absolutely.
I think that I read, so if you win on September 19th, session starts like a week later, right? Like you're.
Yep.
Okay.
Which is exciting. I think that, again, it speaks to the urgency of the time. We have so much to do. And so, we're grateful for the opportunity to run. We are excited by the opportunity to win, but more invigorated by the opportunity to serve, and doing it back to back to back to make sure that we're getting stuff done for Pennsylvanians.
Fantastic. Yeah, and you know, again, I keep reiterating this point. It's not just sort of a defensive seat. You know, Lindsay, you are the right person to pick up that seat and actually carry some of these policies forward, right? You are a progressive candidate, which is absolutely amazing. I wouldn't have you on here otherwise, right? So I wish you Godspeed on the 19th. Again, Lindsay Powell for PA.com. Feel free to come back anytime once you get elected and you want to come on and elevate some policy, whatever, amplify it. I'm here for you.
I
Right.
appreciate it. We
I
absolutely
appreciate
will be back. The policy stuff is where I think that we progressives can be most dangerous. And so I'm excited to get back on and hopefully tell you all the things we're working on.
Love it. Love it. Good luck on the 19th. And, hopefully I'll see you on the floor on whatever the 25th or whenever that next week is. Right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.